brief the PM on, first of all, weather, operational footprint and situation, and then also in relation to recovery planning and recovery activities. I think there's some key actions that you will see that are occurring today. The cyclone has slowed and is starting to have some impacts, but it is now looking that it will impact probably tomorrow morning. Still a very, very, very dynamic situation. The thing I would like to do, though, is two things. First of all, to acknowledge all the community, the Australians, probably about 4 million, that are actually being directly affected by this cyclone. And second, just to give confidence that at every level, the Australian government, states and territories, local government, private sector, not-for-profits, are all working together to prepare and support the communities in their preparation. So now it's a little bit of that batten down, be safe and be ready. So, Prime Minister, thanks very much. Over to you.
Well, thanks very much, Joe, for you and your team for the extraordinary work that you're undertaking here. This is an example of the public service and what they do. And the increased staff here are making a difference here in people's lives. And I thank everyone for their diligence, for their commitment, for their professionalism, and most importantly, for their passion in what they're doing. And it's similar to what I met, the public servants I met in Queensland as well, who were from southeast Queensland and New South Wales, making a difference. When nature does its worst, Australians are at our best. We rally, we lift each other up, we look out for our neighbours, we look out for our local community. Communities come together at a time like this. And to the local MPs and mayors I've spoken to, that is what we are seeing here. We get each other through the dark times hour by hour and day by day. And I want to thank the members of the media as well, for you play an important role, including broadcasting. Information to people in real time is absolutely critical. As the storm bears down, we know that we're not Queenslanders or New South Wales people at this time. We're all Australians helping each other out. The cyclone crossing the land is now less than 24 hours away, but already we're seeing the increased rainfall having an impact there. An impact we must bear in mind is an impact on people, firstly, an impact on infrastructure, but importantly as well, an impact on people's psyche going through as well. Many of these communities have suffered harsh event after harsh event after harsh event. I think particularly of the people of Lismore, for example, have been knocked down, they get up, they get knocked down, they get up, and now they have this being confronted with. There are no politics in any of this, no borders, and we have, on behalf of the Australian government, we have your back. And Australians have each other's back at this important time as well. I'll go through some key facts and then happy to take some questions. The latest modelling, as you've heard from Joe, is that Tropical Cyclone Alfred will make impact in the early hours of tomorrow morning, or at some stage tomorrow, it would appear. Rainfall and wind impacts are expected to continue increasing throughout today. We're starting to see the impact on the coast, the record wave heights recorded at the Gold Coast of 12.3 metres. Can I say that everyone has to accept personal responsibility here too. This isn't a time for sightseeing or for seeing what it's like to experience these conditions firsthand. Please stay safe, be sensible, and keep distance from these events and the impact that it's happening. There are a number of areas where people are being asked to evacuate. It's important that if the SES is advising you to evacuate by a certain time, you do so. They have knowledge, they have expertise, they have experience. You make their life harder, and importantly as well, it means they can be distracted from assisting others if people aren't following the recommendations in a timely manner. Please stay up to date with the latest advice via the Disaster Queensland QLD website, the NSW SES website, the BOM, Bureau of Meteorology website, or through your local ABC radio station. Thank you to all the local ABC staff keeping their communities informed. We have generators in the national stockpile and can send them when we receive a request from either of the state governments and when it is safe to do so. However, I stress this will not be enough to solve the issue of potentially tens of thousands of homes without power, and that is why it is so important to be prepared at your home. Monitor and follow the messaging provided by your local energy and telecom providers for updates. Make sure you have emergency battery packs fully charged to be used only for essential purposes. Some of Services Australia's centres in Queensland and Northern New South Wales have closed. People can complete their business online or by calling their regular payment line. Be prepared and download and set up the MyGov app on your mobile device. Virgin and Qantas have paused flights to and from the Brisbane, Gold Coast and Ballina Byron airports. More than 1,000 schools are closed across Queensland and more than 280 schools are closed across northern New South Wales. I do want to thank the emergency services personnel, local government disaster management staff and the thousands of volunteers working to keep our community safe. I can also provide the following updates about the increased federal assistance that is now flowing. Overnight, I've approved the request for 120 ADF personnel to depart immediately for New South Wales. They'll start work today, supporting the local SES door knocking as well as conducting welfare checks on vulnerable members of the community. They will support the SES with road clearance, sandbagging, clearing, access to critical infrastructure, damage assessments and essential services. The Chief Medical Officer has activated the Department of Health and Aged Care's National Incident Centre for Tropical Cyclone Alfred. The National Incident Centre is activated when there's a significant event or an emerging threat. It's a coordination mechanism to ensure that communication is maintained between the Commonwealth Department of Health, state health authorities and response agencies, including, of course, here at NEMA. We've delivered, as was reported, more than 375,000 sandbags have now been delivered. After this event, I will visit the Services Australia Operations Centre with the Minister, Katie Gallagher, here in Canberra. Services Australia is the engine room of government support to all Australians. We'll meet staff who will support the emergency response to Tropical Cyclone Alfred. Where people should get information, I'll conclude with. Listen to your local ABC radio or visit www.bom.gov.au. Queenslanders can stay up to date at www.disaster.qld.gov.au and www.getready.qld.gov.au. In New South Wales, visit ses.nsw.gov.au and stay up to date on the Hazards Near Me app run by the SES. Happy to take a couple of questions.
Prime Minister, on the cyclone, is global warming making natural disasters worse?
Oh, look. Australia has always had natural disasters. We have always had that. We are a land, as Ms McKellar said a long time ago, of floods and rains and wind. We do have impacts. What we know, the science tells us that there would be more extreme weather events, they would be more frequent and they'd be more intense. I think anyone who looks at the science knows that that is what is occurring. So you can't say this event is just because of climate change. What you can say is that climate change is having an impact on our weather patterns. The world's hottest years have been increasingly from year to year. Every January it's reported. Last year was hotter. All of the hottest years have been in the last decade. I was the climate change spokesperson 20 years ago now, and at that time we were reporting that, and it has consistently been the case.
Prime Minister, based on what you've seen and heard this morning, is it about right that there is probably no immediate threat to Brisbane at this point? Wayne Swan made this comment this morning.
This is a serious event. What we need to do is to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. We absolutely need to prepare for the worst. This is already having an impact, and the impact with the slowing of the Cyclone Alfred in its journey westward to the coast, we should not think that slower means better. It's not clear that it could intensify as well as it is over warmer waters, has the potential to increase the intensity of it. So we are, as a government, and I know that state governments as well and local government and people need to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. That is what we need to do.
Prime Minister, if the writs are issued, can the government get money out the door for the disaster?
Yes, governments can continue, but I'm not concerned about that. What we're concerned about is responding here.
Prime Minister, climate change has been falling down the list of voter priorities since the last election. Do you think Cyclone Alfred is going to change that, and will you release emission targets before the next election?
Look, we have released our targets. They're 43%.
The 2035 targets.
Well, we need, according to legislation, I won't be breaking the law, and the law says we need to get the advice from the Climate Change Authority for that. Like, it's a legal requirement that the entire Parliament voted for. We have targets, we're working towards them. I take climate change seriously, and my government takes climate change seriously.
Prime Minister, the President. Some of the concerns associated, with this weather event. In that context, do you think it was appropriate for Peter Dutton to leave Brisbane, travel to Sydney for a fundraising event when his community and electorate was preparing for Alfred?
Well, that's a matter for him. I did see his comments about my responsibilities, but that's a matter for him. He can comment on his own responsibilities. I'm fulfilling mine.
PM, Donald Trump overnight has said that the US won't defend NATO militaries that don't adequately fund them. We're obviously not a part of NATO, but are you concerned that if Australia does not lift its defence spending, it could impact the relationship with Washington?
Our relationship with Washington remains the same today as it was yesterday when I answered that question. I'm focused on this event right here, right now. I've said before I'm not going to give a running commentary on a daily basis of President Trump's comments. We'll continue to be focused on what Australians are focused on. And they're focused on this event. Here, here, and then we'll finish.
Prime Minister, thanks. The ADF...
And Chloe snuck in there at the end there.
The ADF has said it's ready to respond, but this has also raised the question. The ADF has said it's ready to respond, but this has again raised the question of the demand on ADF resources at a time where it's also facing geopolitical crises. So what's your long-term strategy for dealing with the twin risks of increasing domestic disasters as well as a dangerous geopolitical environment?
The ADF are not just ready to respond, the ADF are proud of the work that they have done. I spoke with ADF personnel on the ground in North Queensland, dealing with the floods there, where they did over the Olera Creek crossing. They did extraordinary engineering work in order to open up access to Ingham. You know what? They were so proud of the work that they're doing.
Prime Minister, I understand your focus is on domestic issues at the moment, but if you'll allow me, President Trump said this morning that there won't be any changes to the steel or aluminium tariffs coming into effect next week. How worried are you an exemption for Australia is now off the table?
I'm focused on this issue. We'll continue to put our case to our friends in the United States.
Prime Minister, you'd be aware of the case of a 17-year-old being arrested aboard an Avalon flight yesterday and the charges that have followed. What assurances can you give Australians about the robustness, the quality of airport security around our country?
I believe we have robust security. The young person is in custody. This incident is concerning for members of the public. I commend the work of police and aviation officials in responding to it quickly.
Prime Minister, to follow Olivia's earlier question, you said this event was beyond politics. Some in your government have criticised Peter Dutton for going to that fundraiser. Susan Ley this morning, you might not have seen her comments, but she was critical of Labor for sending out invitations to budget night fundraisers. I'm not going to ask you about the election date, but does this event, necessitate a broader pause on campaigning activity, do you think?
Susan Ley, I mean, the Liberal Party, her own party, have sent out invitations, I understand as well. It's normal that budget night there'll be events that will occur. My government is razor focused on dealing with this challenge. I'll tell you who's not razor focused on dealing with this challenge. That's Paul Erickson, the National Secretary of the Labor Party, because it's not his job. He has a different job. My job is to represent Australians, and that is precisely what I'm doing and what the full force of the public service is doing as well.
Thanks, Peter. Just on the tariff issue again.
If you ask the same question, you might get the same answer.
Well, it's a slightly different question, but the opposition has suggested that there's a stronger case for an exemption now than there was in 2018. And suggested that if we don't get that exemption, it will be a failure review because you haven't done the spade work with Donald Trump, go to the US and things like that. What do you say to that? And do you think that we won't get that exemption after all?
Well, I have respect for you, and therefore I think that my response would be the same as your response would be, which is to just see, a political party that's not cheering for Australia. Not cheering for Australia. I put this comment back to you. Do those comments assist Australia in getting an exemption, or does that sort of political play talk undermine Australia's national position? This is an opposition that always talked down Australia's national interest. If you go back to 2018, you know what the opposition was doing, led by Bill Shorten then? We were cheering with the government. That's what responsible oppositions do. That's what we did. I did as opposition leader during COVID, consistently cheered for Australia's national interest. I think Australians will judge that sort of nonsense and cheering against Australia's position in an appropriate way. Chloe, last one.
4 million people impacted. How concerned are you about access to food? Have you spoken to the supermarkets about what can be done there? And then going forward, how big an impact is this going to have on the price of food nationwide and the price of insurance?
Well, the National Coordination Mechanism is meeting regularly, like on a daily basis, I think, Joe. One of the things that they do is that they bring together industry, including our supermarkets. They bring together transport, which is important, freight organisations as well, to make sure that we get that coordination right. That is occurring on a daily basis. We are working cooperatively. This is a national effort, not just between the Commonwealth Government and state governments and local government. This is a national effort, mobilising on behalf of Australia's national interest, and that includes our supermarkets. Obviously, an event like this has an impact on our economy. It's as simple as that. I have costs. I have already authorised expenditures. There will be a cost of providing support for individuals and communities from this extreme weather event, as there have been in the past. Yesterday, in addition to signing support for here, I signed off on some supporter requests from Premier Allen about the impact of the bushfires that occurred in Victoria. You know, one of the things about extreme weather events and responding to them, people speak about the costs of action to deal with the transition that's underway. Tell you what, there's an economic cost as well as a human cost of weather events, and that is something that public policy makers should be very conscious of. My government is certainly very conscious of, which is why we're so determined not just to deal with immediate threats, but to always have our eye on that horizon of how do we act responsibly so that we make a difference based upon acting on the science. Thanks very much, and I think we're going to give you time to race off to the Services Australia Centre. Thank you.